Welcome back to the show. Well, an important story you might have missed, or if you read Fairfax newspapers, you've probably been following up for a year, because journalist Heath Aston has been writing about the huge, vast sums of money Australia's not getting through its petroleum resource rent tax. No, that's not the mineral one. That was the Julia Gillard one. We had one for oil, then it became gas, you know, that new boom we were going to have. Not working out as we planned. Anyway, after a year of pushing this story, we finally, in the last 2 weeks of Parliament, got agreement for an inquiry into this. So let's find out what it means, because when we're all debating the budget repair here on Sky, this would be a very good start. So joining me tonight, Heath Aston, congratulations on getting that inquiry up and pushing it.
Well, it's not the sexiest topic out there, I guess, but we sort of pushed hard and, you know, the inquiry
sit here talking about budget repair all the time, so it's there,
exactly.
Isn't it?
And I mean, you take the last week of Parliament, how many hours was spent talking about the couple of million between a 13% and a 15% backpacker tax? You know,
and you're
tens
talking
of millions
billions
of dollars. We're talking, when it comes to the PRRT, potentially billions. You know, definitely hundreds of millions, we think, potentially billions, if you look at what is actually about to be lost.
Well, let's get into that in just a minute. We're also joined by Jason Ward from the Tax Justice Network. You've also been looking at this, and in fact, you wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader calling for the inquiry too, quoting Heath's article. So you'd be happy with this inquiry into it?
Absolutely. We're very happy that this is, you know, that this will get a good look at. And again, we're talking about billions of dollars here.
All right, well, let's look at what we're talking on this, on the numbers. I know you've written a number of articles, but I mean, I guess the key takeout was, what was it, 8% of companies, 5% of companies, of the 150 oil and gas companies are only paying the tax.
Paying the tax. It's the only form of royalty. A lot of people, I think, assume that some of these companies would still be paying some sort of state-based royalty, but these are large offshore LNG projects. They're in federal waters, and the PRRT is literally the only thing that the nation gets back for that resource.
And we're talking huge
yes,
companies like Chevron.
Yes, they're supposed to pay company tax as well, and as we know, even from the update the other day on Friday, those companies aren't paying any income tax, any company tax. So the PRRT is supposed to be for taking our national resource. There should be some sort of royalty, and it looks like from everything that you can find out in the numbers and what the WA government did, that any income from this is coming in decades, and who knows.
Well, Jason, that's the key. The 5% of the 150, and as I said, it's big companies like Chevron. We'll get to them not paying other tax in a minute. But how did it get to this? I mean, they've had so many tax credits stored up. As he said, it could be decades before they ever have to pay. I mean, it's legitimate. It's legal, isn't it? We've just handled this badly.
It's legal, but there's so many loopholes that have been written into this tax system that it's just not going to collect anything literally for decades. And that's not us saying that's the WA Treasury saying that. There's $190 billion and growing in PRRT tax credits that the industry has stashed away for, you know, that will buffer them paying this tax for a very, very long time. And this is in the face of Australia becoming the world's largest exporter of LNG, liquefied natural gas.
And that's the point, Heath. You pointed out that Qatar, we're just about to overtake them as the biggest exporter. They get 26 billion. We get 800 million.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference there, isn't it? But there's a difference in the way that it's approached. They have a very rigorous system where it is basically just a royalty on how much is pumped. We don't do that. This is how we have an intricate profits-based thing, and that it was designed to encourage exploration and investment, and it's achieved that. You know, $200 billion has been invested in LNG projects in Australia, but the flip side is it doesn't. The money that should be coming after a few years, where you get to take back some of that money that you spent in exploration, it seems to be further and further and further off into the horizon. And I think the Auditor General's report into the slightly separate, the Northwest Shelf, it's a mature project. It's been there for 30 years, but he raised all these questions about why are they still claiming all these deductions, all these write-offs. So you can see that even when they reach maturity, there's all these loopholes that are available to them to build up these credits and therefore buffer themselves, as Jason said.
Jason, I was going to ask on the Northwest Shelf, because the original PRT was brought in during the Hawke government. I think it was just for oil. I mean, Northwest Shelf was just starting. It has been amended to include the Northwest Shelf, but we're still not getting anything from it.
It has, so it's been amended to include all offshore, onshore.
Except for the Timor Sea, which is still in dispute.
Which is still in dispute, yeah. But, and the Northwest Shelf is transitioning into it, so they're still supposedly collecting a 10% royalty on Northwest.
Is anyone paying it?
The PRRT, very few people. The new data came out on Friday with the PRRT numbers, and it's declined another $500 million in revenue.
Basically, over the last few years, it's just been the Bass Strait project, and that's largely
and they're
to do
all
with
coming
oil.
to an end, aren't
it's
they?
oil as well, because oil spikes the price, as we all know, and you get super profits. What the difference with LNG is long-term contracts and stable return equals not super profits, and so they can hide behind that as well, these companies, and say, well, we haven't made, you know, the big profit to actually get to paying this 40%, because it's 40% once they get to paying it.
It's a super profit. But Heath, what has been wrong with successive governments? You would have thought this was something that they could, that was there when they're trying to make money. Or did the debacle of when they tried to do it on iron ore with the minerals resources rent tax, with the terrible mining tax of the Gillard government, do you think that put them off and nobody wanted to then go down this route again?
I would say definitely. I would say Labor has been a bit gun-shy on this whole thing ever since then. They haven't really come out on this PRRT, even though it does seem to be
No, it's been the Greens and crossbenchers,
exactly,
hasn't it?
Yeah. So there is a fair amount of sort of cat on a hot tin roof about what happened in the past with that. But interestingly, at the time when the mining tax was front and centre and Gina Rinehart was on the back of the ute and everything like that, did the oil and gas companies that were under the PRRT system say anything at the time? No, because they were actually quite happy with this system, because there's not really, in their eyes, not much problem with it, because it's, you know.
Jason, I thought at the time that the petroleum one was the example, that it was doing well. How did we not know? I mean, this Auditor General's report came out, Heath has drawn attention, but how all these years, and take away the mining tax problem, did successive treasurers not think, look, we really should do something on this? Really, is anyone going to care if Chevron pays a bit more money?
It's pretty shocking that this hasn't been addressed sooner, really, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, some of the other things that Heath has written about is that Nigeria collects twice as much per unit.
And it's probably with them skimming it off to the local.
And there's not to say there's all kinds of issues about what they're not collecting from the major oil companies, and incredible court cases and lawsuits going on there. But it's just truly remarkable. I mean, and they're really getting away with taking these resources for free.
I know, and we had this debate that $300 million to the tax office on the Bell case was stealing from us, taking our money. Well, goodness knows on this. So just summing up, Heath, do we know when the inquiry is coming, and is there now more appetite? Obviously the Greens, you push for this. Are Labor and Liberal likely to get together while they're all talking, mouthing multinational tax avoidance?
I think the best sign was Scott Morrison saying the other day, yes, there is a problem here, and he's also timed the inquiry to come back in April, and he said specifically so that I can put something in the budget. And he, you know, we don't know exactly what that will be, but Treasury has looked at this before even this inquiry. We know that. They obviously see money there. They need the inquiry to perhaps endorse that, but we think that we're pretty sure that there will be a result come budget 2017.
Just quickly before I ask Jason on the logistics, from a journalist's point of view of the politics of it, if they think they're going to get a mining or a similar reaction to the mining tax, do you think this government is tough enough to withstand it?
Look, they don't seem too tough on most issues, so God, you know, who only knows what's going to happen.
Still, if the billions are there.
You can imagine that there is some high-paid lobbyists about to be, you know, if they're not already, dispatched to Canberra, because this has been, as I said earlier, a system that they've been very happy to be under, and they certainly, I think you can expect, I think we will see this, is arguments against retrospectively changing something. And you can see a certain point, I think we're probably indicted by our own government on the rules, because they'll say, we've invested $200 billion in your country, they'll be talking sovereign risk, that you're now going to change the rules
that
on
does
this.
sound like the Binding Resource
Well,
Reg
there you
tax.
go,
But
there you go.
That's very similar. So, yeah, but I guess even if you gave them warning, it's still those decades that, Jason, you were talking about. We could at least try and stop that. You mentioned that report that came out on the weekend. This does come into a broader thing. I mentioned Chevron only because they're one of the beneficiaries here.
Yep.
They were also one of the ones named there. I'm assuming there's a bit of a double up. Given that both sides, Labor and Liberal, keep saying they want to stop multinational tax avoidance, does that come into the PRT?
Absolutely. I mean, the PRRT is a profits-based tax, and if you can game the system to not pay your corporate income tax, well, you're by all means going to use those same tricks and tactics on the PRRT side, and that's clearly a problem. And the PRRT is based on self-reporting and voluntary compliance, and we should be aware that that doesn't really work too well on the corporate tax side. So why would we expect it to work well on this side as well?
Heath, you need One Nation on side. Where are they on this?
Look,
They seem to be leading the debates these days.
well,
I'd say get Pauline
I
Hanson
think
on.
they probably
they
will
would.
jump on board this, because actually, when you look at it, it's the 25 million of us that are being ripped off for the benefit of
That's the
about
one.
5 large companies. So if there's an easy target in this budget, you'd have to think
That's
that
it.
Scott Morrison has it right in his sights.
We look forward to hearing more on it. I told you it was interesting. It really does come down to everything we need to know. You can follow it at Fairfax, Heath Aston, and also look at the Tax Justice Network. We'll be back in just a minute to just round up the other events of the week.
Bob Jane T-Mart's Great Getaway Deals, our huge annual event. Buy any set of 3 Bridgestone Potenza or Acopia tyres and the 4th is free. Or get the 4th tyre free when you buy any set of 3 Hankook Dynapro SUV tyres. And super deals on wheels. Our huge range of alloy wheels starts from just $99. See the latest catalogue or website for all our great getaway deals. At Bob Jane T-Mart's, we'll look after you.